Welcome to the Pivot Table Lab, where we are going to be learning what a pivot table is and how to manipulate it on Excel. So first, we need to make sure we have our downloaded sample data. This can be found through our Canvas page titled Pivot Table Data. And make sure you have it downloaded, and it should look something like this. Don't worry if you don't have stuff that says problem 1, 2, and 3. This is stuff that I'm going to be providing to you guys, things that you need to make. So it says, in this lab, we'll be learning the importance and convenience of the pivot table. Recall that the Cartesian product is the set of all possible ordered combinations consisting of one member from each set. We use the Cartesian product in many settings. Computer sciences use databases, discrete numbers uses domain of operators, linear algebra uses matrices, and combinatorics use categories of attributes, which is what we're going to be using today. Pivot tables are the fastest and easiest way to quickly analyze the data in the Excel and provide an interactive view of the data itself. So make sure we have the downloaded sample data. And ours says under week six. This is going to be under chapter 6 for us. So now we're going to go ahead and work on your title page first. So let's open up a new sheet and let's call this the title page. So in your title page, I would like you to be super creative, but one thing that we would like to make sure that we have is the class name. So ours is Finite Math. In C6 is where I'm typing in Finite Math. We would also like your name. So I'm gonna put down in two places. I will say first and last name. A few more. We're going to title this as the Pivot Table Lab. And then we want our date. Now, you'll notice that some of these overlaps within your cell is not actually going to be like when you go to print it, it won't show it, which if I show you here, if I clicked print, you'll notice that, well, for whatever reason, my setting has done it, but notice it gets cut off. So one thing we can do is make sure that we expand it, whether you manually do it, or you can double click once it has that little plus sign or the cross sign. You can also double click that and it'll automatically do it for you. A few other things, if you're interested, we can highlight and make things in bold. We can highlight certain features or perhaps put them in different colors. We can change the font. I like things in Times New Roman so that it looks a little bit better. Again, I need to expand a little bit. If I wanted it to be a little bit bigger, maybe Finite Math, I want it to be in a size that's a little bit bigger. My name may be a little bit bigger after that. So again, a little bit more expanding out here and just things to make it look presentable and professional. You might also want to consider doing what are these called? Some sort of a border. So whether it's a thick border, maybe it's not thick, maybe it's a double bottom and top one. Maybe you expand outwards. Be as creative as you would like for some of these borders. I've gotten lots of submissions in the past that make it look really awesome and bringing in their creativity, which if you're interested, I can show in another video itself. So whatever you can to bring life to this page, because that is where I get to kind of understand your kind of character. So that is how you make your title page. Now let's go ahead and add a new sheet here. Double clicking, we're just going to type in problem 1 and going over to our sample data. You can either select your whole thing by clicking this little triangle, or if you want to just select your data, you can also select it by column. I'm going to choose to select it by column because I don't want everything coming over all at once because I have some of this stuff which I'm just going to manually enter. So sample data over here. Some of you might have like numbers signs, like the hashtag signs. It just means that some of your data got cut off. So if you'd like, you can expand it manually, but it's not necessary for our video. Now let's go ahead and refer back to our sheet here because we do work on your sheet quite a lot. Okay, now I'm over here. So It says name the page, page 1. We did that. Now select anywhere on the table and go to the insert ribbon tool. And I'm gonna do that for a little bit. And then we're gonna pull up this pivot table. So click anywhere on your data. As long as it's clicked on the data, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and hit insert pivot table. We're not going to change the name of your table, but instead we're going to change the name of the existing worksheet. So on the existing worksheet, so on this page, I want to be putting it in H4, and I'm going to click OK. Then it'll pull up this stuff. Now this is what we like. If at any point in time it disappears, just go back to the pivot table analyze, and then go over to the field list to pull it back up. Maybe I put that over here. Okay, now for us, we're going to be dragging and dropping this column. So I'm going to be pushing it over here. So we're going to build this pivot table using columns, rows, and the value area. So over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sales field, so the sales here, and I'm going to drag it into the values. I'm also going to be dragging the color field into your rows. Well, let's go ahead and do that. You'll see I have the values over here. So I'm going to click my sales and I'm going to drag it into values. I'm going to click my color and I'm going to drag it into rows. So now it's building this table for me. Now notice the changes in Excel. It now breaks it down by colors and by the number of sales or the sum of sales. Now let's go ahead and organize your data to be in numerical order, so greatest to smallest. By doing so, we're just going to highlight your numbers. Don't highlight the sum of sales, but we're just going to highlight your numbers. Going over to the home and then over to A and Z and sort from largest to smallest. Now, depending on your Mac or non-Mac users, for me, when I go back to my pivot table, I'm going to have to use the little eye icon. Now, if you are a non-Excel or non-Mac user, you're just going to right-click on your number over here, and you're looking for number format, and then it should pull up with something showing like this. We're just going to show data as, and you're going to put it into currency. So for me, I'm going to pull up my color, not my colors, my sum of sales. Over here, my little eye icon. My other, my non-Mac users have like a little triangle button here. So I'm going to double click here. Trying to get it to pull up. Maybe I just need to push it over. Come on. There we go. I'm going to go over here where it says number and then over to currency and click OK. My non-Mac users are going to do the same. You just can double click here and then go over to number, I believe. Yeah, number format, and then you'll be able to click currency as well. So you'll notice that now it's all in a currency format. Now let's go ahead and answer a few questions. So in a text box, which I highly encourage you to do a text box rather than to merge cells, because when you merge cells, it's not easy to move it around in case we wanted to print it off in a certain form. So you're going to hit insert text box, and let's pull up a new text box. And I'm just going to pull my text box over so I don't have to retype. And if you guys want to, you can type the question or you can just answer the problem. However, when you do answer it, make sure you're writing in college level sentences. So bringing context, bringing meaning, bringing life to some of your answers or some of your numbers. It says, which color has the smallest amount of sales? So by looking at it, figure out the smallest number of sales. By how much more is the highest color to the next closest color? So again, by how much more is the sale of the highest color to the next closest color? In C and D, we're going to work towards getting those answers to pop up here in a second. So now we're going to go over to the second value field. So we're going to add another category. This time, we're going to select units to the value area so that we'll see sales and units together. So I'm going to click over here and I'm going to select units and I'm going to put them right next to my sum of sales. So you'll notice that it's now right next to it. So in this case, now that we've had this, because the sum of the units, right, how to read your table, the blue total is 608. The green silver has 473, because these are going to be, we're talking about cars here. I'm not sure if it stated that in the beginning, but these are going to be the sales of cars. All right, so go ahead and answer C. How many total sales units are there? Now let's go ahead and try and get D when it says, what is the percent of green cars? Now let's say we wanted to manipulate these numbers to show we have a percentage. So again, for my Mac users, we're gonna have to use the little I icon. For my non-Mac users, you're just gonna be double clicking right here. So when I double click, something else happens. Unfortunately, I have to now delete this. Go ahead and delete this whole sheet. So you guys just go ahead and double click and you're going to be going down to show value as and then a percent of grand total. So for me, I'm going to come over to my sum of units, going to double click, show data as, no calculation, and I'm going to go down to percent of grand total. I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice that everything has now changed into percentage. So we made the computer do the work instead of trying to figure it out logically through us. So we can go ahead and answer D. What is the percentage of green cars? Now let's go ahead and pull up a new sheet. Let's label it problem 2. Let's go back and grab your data. So once more, so Command C, we're going to put it in A1. We're going to change this to say problem 2. And I want to go ahead and make sure that problem 1, I also put that there. So that way, when I go to print it off, I know exactly which problem is going to occur when, or which problem I'm looking at when I go to grade it. So I'm going to zoom in one more time. Make sure you're saving the sheet as you're going through. Now let's group these by date. So in another sheet, we're going to be using a pivot table one more time, but this time we're going to look at months, quarters, and years. So let's copy the data into the new sheet. Some of you might be copying the same pivot table. If you are, just make sure you deselect everything before you get started. So let's open up a new pivot table and let's select units to have your values and colors in rows, and then dates are going to go into column. Notice by doing so that we can have each year listed in the grand total. So again, anywhere on your data itself, we're going to click. Then we're inserting the pivot table. Leave that alone. We're going to put it into H4. So they said units in value, color in rows. We're going to put date in your column. Sometimes it takes a little second. My computer's a little older too as well, so it might just take a minute more. So you'll notice here that we have something a little bit more expanded. So we have your blue car in 2016, the total number was 147. Now with these plus marks, if we go to open them up, you'll notice that it's then separated by a quarter, which is what we want. And if we add it again, you'll notice that it then breaks it up into the first 3 months, the first quarter, January, February, and March for your blue cars. When you are done with that information, just hit the minus sign and it'll go back to normal. So let's go ahead and answer your first question. So again, making a text box by clicking insert and then text for text box. I'm just going to be pulling in the questions from what I previously had. So Command C, problem 2, and I'll put it right here. So A, which quarter of all the colors had the highest units sold? So in other words, let's look at all of the quarters and determine which has the most color. Tell me when it occurred and what color and how much. So let's go ahead and what you're going to have to be doing is really opening up all of these to take a look at which quarter of all of your colors in all of your years had the most. Then when you're ready, you can go ahead and answer the next one. It says, in what year did green do the best in sales? Now, you might want to answer this question first, and then a question C before maybe answering A. C says, describe what has likely occurred to silver in order for the first two categories to be absent. Again, we're talking about the number of car sales for the years of 2016, 17, 18, and 19. So if it's blank for these years, what do you think has occurred? Now, before we answer C and D, we now need to manipulate it ever so slightly. If you wanted to, you don't have to do this next step, although it does make it a little bit more fluid. Instead of trying to plus sign everything and um, having a really big chart. So I'm going to click my table one more time, and I'm going to go ahead and hide my quarters. So I'm going to click my quarters over here and click hide. For the non-Mac users, you're going to do the little triangle, and you're just going to hit remove field. I'm going to click hide. So that makes my quarters disappear so that when I go to expand, I'm just looking at, for this year, all of the months. Now then we can answer the following. How many units did green do in August of 2019? And these are green cars. How many units did blue do in May of 2016? None of these are trick questions. We're just looking for that specific value. Again, answering these in college level sentences. Now, once you answered those, we can then move on. Sometimes you can also try to hit the group and then of your group from your data or from your date. You can also hide as well. It just sometimes depends on the um, not iOS, but the type of Excel app that you have, if it's recent or not. That one might have been an older model. Now let's make a two-way pivot table. Again, trying to save your sheet as much as possible. So in this sheet, we're creating a pivot table that plots two-dimensional arrangements. So let's go ahead and add one more problem to the mix. Problem 3. Let's go ahead and copy your data once more. Problem 3. Insert a pivot table. Still in H4, so we got that going for us. So then it says, let's put colors in your rows, sum of sales and values in regions in your column. So colors to rows, color, there we go, to rows, units to, I think values it said, and then region in your columns. Region, there we go, in my columns. So something like this. So again, how we're reading this is the overlap. We're talking about Eastern region. Blue cars sold 92 cars in total. All right, so let's take a look. So we created a pivot table. Note that you can switch the region and the colors by swapping them. So if you wanted to swap these like so, it's just the reverse of what we've seen. Either one is fine. I might just snap it back. That is what is in here. But just notice that you can swap colors and rows and still come up with the same exact table, just oriented a little differently. So again, in another text box, so go ahead and insert your text box and let me grab my set of questions. So this one says, part A, how much did the North make on green cars? B said, how much did silver make in the West? And C says, other than the North, how much did the other regions produce? And D, how much did either Blue Cars or Eastern Region sales produce in the units? Now, what I'm looking for here in the last two questions are what did we do or what did we talk about when it came to our test or the sections that we're talking in chapter 6, the and or the or the not. Okay, so definitely use your notes to help you answer these two. Again, state in college level sentences. Now, when it comes to printing, I don't want you to print out everything that you have because that's a lot of paper, but make sure as you're going to save it. So when you do save, I would like it to be your pivot table lab and then your main. Now we can go ahead because we don't need this sample data anymore. We're going to just go ahead and delete it. So that doesn't have to be a part of our worksheet at all. So go ahead and click sample data and we can then delete this whole sheet. It's not a necessary step, but sometimes it might be worth it. So that way, when you go through, we're just looking at your title page, problem 1, 2, and 3. Now, one thing that we might want to consider, because I have stuff written over here, I might want to orient my page so that it has narrow margins. So by going to page layout my margins, I'm going to do it narrow, and then I might try to do this as a landscape. Now, when I do, you'll notice these dotted lines. These are my printing lines, which I'm going to just pull my text box over. I might even shorten it, but I want to make sure that it's going to be fitting on my first page. I'm going to do that for the remainder of them. So same thing, narrow, orientation, it's landscape. You'll notice that this one is cut off a bit, which shouldn't have cut off. Oh, but that's okay. I have a trick to kind of help us out. So if it's cut off, that's okay. I'll show you what to do next. So landscape, narrow, and it's cut off. Now, because I don't want to print it off with all of our data because that would be an absolute mess, what we can do is try to print these individually by setting a print area. So you'll notice that I'm highlighting where I want to print. And then I'm going to go over here on the page layout there it says print area. I'm going to select or set this print area so that when I hit Command P, all that's going to be pulling up is this area that I wanted it to print out. Now, I might want to include where it says problem 1. So I might want to include this whole thing to start. And when I do, I can hit the set print area. That way, when I hit Command Command P, you'll notice that I have problem 1, and then only a few data will pull up. Also, if you're wanting to put this into a PDF, because maybe you're wanting to print it, you can print it in chunks just by going over to the PDF, save as PDF, and then it'll pull up. I'll show you other ways to do that as well. So same thing here, if you want, just highlight where you want it to print. And then print area, we'll set that way. And then Control P, and you'll see that print area over here. You'll notice that a little bit is cut off, which I hate when it is cut off. That is not allowed because you'll notice that it's on page 2. So let's try that one more time. I don't think I hit the total print area. Let's try that one more time. Set print area. Control P. Now, if it's still not printing up, what we can do is, let's see, on a Mac, usually it says to put it into high details, fit to scale. There we go. Clicking fit to scale, that way it widens it, and it's no longer cutting off that page. So again, printing when you're ready. And one more. This one isn't going to get cut off too much. If you wanted, you can kind of close this gap and set print area. Now, another way to print this off as well is when you go ahead, Command P, before you hit your PDF and put it into like a PDF right over here, what you can do is make sure that we're printing the entire workbook, and it'll pull up with a lot. So 16 pages, kind of big. So again, printing area, we don't love that it is cut into. That one's okay. That one's cut off. And we don't need the necessary other bit. So we can always go ahead and try this one as well to set that print area. over here. Again, I want to make it so that, there we go. It's not cut off nearly as much. You might also want to consider, because it might get trimmed a little bit, you can consider cutting off one of your, what are these called, columns, by selecting the column that we don't need and then just deleting the column altogether. So I might delete this column, delete column sheet, and you'll notice that things have moved over. So now that if we hit Control P, it should be all in one. Same thing over here. Let's see, did this one get pulled off? Narrow. I want landscape. Let's set that print area one more time. There. Let's see. Much better. Okay. So again, narrow for landscape. There we go. And all of that is my print area. There we go. And when I go to do it again, you'll notice that when I hit the entire workbook, I now am down to 6 pages. Don't love that it's 6 pages right now. You'll notice that that part is still cut off, which, let's see, there should be a way to, let's see, narrow margins should help it a bit, entire workbook, but there should be, oh, no, that's orientation. Oh, wait, is that better? There we go. That should be a little bit better. There you go. Now everything is on one full page. So that looks better as far as printing goes. Whenever you're ready, you can save that as a PDF. It might take a second, but notice I'm down to 4 pages already. Pivot table solutions is what I'm going to call mine. I'm going to put it on my desktop. Fall 2024. Now this is what you're going to be handing in person. Otherwise, when you submit it online, I do need this Excel sheet. So you're just going to save it, and then you're just going to upload it, or go to Canvas and then upload the file directly.